So the Green Party in Britain has just elected a new leader, an ex-hypnotherapist who used to help women increase the size of their breasts using their minds. Now, despite this evident virtue, he has some drawbacks, he has some downsides. He's not all good, although I can see why on the platform of this non-intrusive form of improving the world, Zack managed to become the leader of the Green Party. But the Green Party itself is a bit of a strange beast, and Zack Polanski, like I said, despite all of his evident virtues, has some drawbacks, he has some downsides, and he, frankly, has some beliefs that are just incredibly wildly out of touch with, well, modern Britain and the rest of the world. And also, and I don't want to be mean about this, but he's a bit of a weird choice because he doesn't really represent the country in any way. Now, of course, we all want women to have larger bosoms, but Zack is a bit of a sort of an oddity in politics. Now, I think it's worth remembering that much of politics, in fact, I would say most of politics, is based on what I guess you could just call likability. How much do people like you? How much do people feel themselves made present in you? And this is one of the things that Boris Johnson is very good at. This is one of the things that Nigel Farage is very good at. Appearing to be the kind of guy you would actually like to hang out with and go down the pub with. The kind of guy who you think if he were in your position or you were in his position, he'd make relatively similar decisions to you. And that usually is based upon similar traits and characteristics. You think, well, if he's like me, then he's going to, in those positions, in those times and places where he's making decisions, make the sort of decisions that I would make that would be beneficial to me and my family and my country. And so Zack isn't really representative of a very large slice of the population. There's a reason why most of the time our leaders are married, have children, come from the majority native population, because this is unconsciously something that represents, well, the people of the country. And so Zack Polanski, being the son of a Jewish immigrant, he's also gay and has a boyfriend, and he is also a vegan, and he is also a radical leftist, makes him, well, a perfect fit for the Green Party, but not someone that I personally would think would have a lot of cut through with the average person in the country, given that what he wants is just radical leftism. So people tend to think that the Green Party is just essentially a middle-class party, which I think is a fair description, frankly. Of course, very few people think that he appeals to the working class. Some people think that they appeal but equally to both classes. But almost half of people are like, yeah, it's a middle-class party. But moreover, it's a middle-class party of weirdos. This is from Zack receiving the honor of being elected. And we'll have a look at the people in the room. Here he comes coming in, and you can see they're very happy. But these people are a bit weird, aren't they? Like, they're very white, very evidently middle class, but also a bit weird looking. And like, these are unusual middle class people. So I don't know what the actual like maximum constituency for the Green Party is, but I'm gonna guess it's actually not that big. Because Zack Polanski asks, why would you want to set a limit to immigration? Well, that's very bold. In the era of anti-immigration that Britain has moved into, the Greens have elected someone who is a hardcore immigration advocate. In fact, we'll let him make his own case.
I'll ask you about immigration because it is a huge topic, and you have called Nigel Farage one of the most effective political operators that we have seen in this country. While he is taking over the debate on immigration on the right, you seem to take, unsurprisingly, a totally different view, which is no limits on immigration. Is that the case?
Well, I first want to qualify that I despise Nigel Farage.
I just want to qualify that.
Politics. So although I'm saying he's an effective political communicator, a lot of the things he's done, like Brexit, I think have been catastrophic for this.
I don't want to qualify your statement about unlimited immigration. It's that I don't like Nigel Farage. I don't want people mistaking that I like Nigel Farage. And there's no denying that Nigel Farage is an effective political operator. So why he would feel the need to qualify that? Because, I mean, you'd have to be insane not to know that, given how he's currently at like 35% in the polls and is doing great, all things considered. But I guess if this is the caliber of the opposition, then why wouldn't you be?
Country. I think it's also undeniable that he cuts through. People know who he is and they hear what he says. On immigration, I think the question is this. We have an aging population. We have 150,000 vacancies in our National Health Service. Now, of course, we should be training British workers to have the future jobs. But at the same time as doing that, we should recognise that when migrants come here, they are very often paying more into our benefit system through tax than they are taking out.
So no limits.
This is just not true. That's not true. And it depends where they come from. If they come from the EU, yeah, they are net tax contributors. If they come from anywhere other than the EU or the United States, they're not. So Zack doesn't make any kind of distinction there.
Well, I think the question is, why would you want to set a limit? And
Why would we indeed, Zack? Great question. That's the question the public is asking themselves. Reduce immigration? Why would we want to set a limit to immigration? Immigration has been an unvarnished good, completely nothing but positive, Zack. It's a great question. And I'm glad that you're on Good Morning Britain putting this question to the British public. Dear average person who hates foreigners and doesn't want more of them coming into the country, why would you want to set a limit to immigration?
if the reason you want to set a limit is because we need more council homes, we need more investment in the National Health Service, I agree. But none of
That's not why people want to set a limit. People want to set a limit because they don't want their country swamped by foreigners who have their own countries and have. I mean, he literally said we want to build them council homes. Why do we want that?
of that is the problem of migrants. The problem with there is multimillionaires and billionaires not paying enough tax and not enough investment in public service.
Okay.
Those are all
Mad. And this is obviously a continual refrain from the Green Party and every like Corbynista style leftist. It's that actually we just haven't taxed people enough. We just need to raise those taxes. And once the billionaires and millionaires flee, we're going to raise taxes on everyone else because we've got these commitments morally that we have established. Everyone's getting a goddamn council house. By the time I'm finished, everyone in Britain will live in a council house, says Zack. Incredible work. What a pitch. I can't see how this could possibly go wrong.
political choices. We can make different political
Are you going to be the Nigel Farage of the left?
Well, not in terms of his politics, but in terms of the storytelling and cut through, absolutely, that's part of the
Interesting.
ambition.
Zack?
Amazing. Incredible cut through. So what we're going to do is have no limit to the number of foreigners, and we're going to make you pay for the houses that they live in through excessive taxation to build them council houses. It's a completely salient message. It's left-wing populism, you see, folks. And I think that does have a lot of cut through. I mean, when it came to illegal immigrants, well, because remember, that's just legal migrants. That's migrants that we're going to have staffing the NHS, because otherwise the NHS collapses, apparently. This is his plan for the illegals.
Hotels or tents for migrants?
Neither. I think we need to be treating people with dignity, and actually we need to be building council houses for British people, but actually a mass council housing programme could give the dignity and care to people, particularly people seeking asylum.
Do you say?
Right, so there we go. If you break into this country, Zack Polanski aims to give you a council house at the expense of the British public. It's for their dignity or something like that. I mean, that just there's no denying that this is the most left-wing position on immigration. Like even like a normal lib who is quite open and wants lots of immigration for the NHS or pensions or whatever, even then they won't be like, yeah, and we need to give them lots of free stuff from the government. They'll be like, no, they can just come here and work, right? They just work like I work. Not Zack Polanski. He's like, no. I want the most radical left-wing position, which is they can come in and we can essentially treat them like babies and give them a bunch of free stuff. Again, radical cut through. Now, there was also this one. Zack Polanski believes that biological men should indeed have access to women's refuges. Now, I'm not going to play the clip because LBC copyright strike, and I don't want to get copyright struck. But in it, Ian Dale says, so should a person with a penis have access to women's spaces? And Zack's like, what? A person with a penis? You mean someone who identifies as a woman? Yes, of course they should. And it's like, right, okay, well, that's another vote winner. That's another position in which the British public is overwhelmingly in favour, Zack. You're really hitting all the high notes here. And of course, he was completely for lockdowns. Sage could do no wrong, even though it's filled by communists. And, well, I mean, why would he disagree? But of course, we need a long overdue universal basic income. So everyone living in a council house, everyone on government benefits, and a lockdown if there's a slight flu going around. So this is just, and this was only from 5 years ago. I mean, it's not like this is ancient history. Not like when he was being a boob hypnotist. But also then you have his position on Graham Linehan, who was arrested at Heathrow Airport on Monday for some tweets. Really, really, really milquetoast tweets. Tweets about actually maybe transgender men shouldn't be aggressing on women in women's spaces, and in those spaces, women have a right to defend themselves. And Zack's like, nope, these are totally unacceptable tweets. We need as many penises in the women's bathrooms as we can get, and I think it was proportionate to arrest him. So he's not concerned about, I guess, old-fashioned ideas like liberty and not being persecuted by the government for thinking and saying things that the state disagrees with. Zack fully intends to continue this kind of regime, which doesn't surprise me at all. But anyway, so like I said, I mean, he's got his strengths, make boobs great again, which, yeah, okay, who can't get on board with that? But he's got a number of weaknesses that I think aren't going to quite push him over the edge with the British public. I think actually he's not really representative of them. He's not terribly pleasant to look at. And he seems to be, oh, that's right, an insane Islamo-leftist who wants to flood the country with foreigners and make sure that men have access to your daughters in their sort of private spaces, which is a bit weird. Oh, and he wants the government to tyrannize you. There's that too. Bit of a weird message to campaign on, but I guess we'll see how he does.